Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I am Kate Harrington, Outreach and Engagement Manager for Movability. I'm glad you're here with us for the fifth and final webinar of our series, Exploring the Role Mobility Will Play as Central Texas Prepares to Reopen. Our presenters today hail from different industries, but all can speak both to their own plans and the unknowns they're looking at when it comes to reopening their workplaces, as well as speak to the changing face of mobility as our region moves forward, whether that's crafting policy, building transportation networks, or working with technology that helps us make smarter decisions in smarter cities. A little bit about Movability before we get started. Movability is Central Texas's Transportation Management Association. We work with employers and commuters to help them reach their goals with mobility planning. That means that we offer customized planning services, networking, and introductions to our many partner members. We also partner with our lead members, the City of Austin, Capital Metro, the Downtown Austin Alliance, and the CTRMA. Those last two are with us today on this webinar. If anyone has questions about what Movability does or how we can help your workplace, I will put up contact information towards the end of the webinar, and please feel free to reach out to us with any questions. Please type questions in if you have them, and note who the question is directed toward. Our panelists today are Casey Burak, the General Counsel and VP of Government Affairs with the Downtown Austin Alliance, Sean Ullman, VP of Culture and Hype at Hypergiant, and Mike Hilligenstein, Executive Director of the Central Texas Regional Mobility Authority, which some of you may know as CTRMA. And with that, I am now going to turn it over to Casey with the Downtown Alliance.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I think you're gonna help me throw my presentation up. I'm glad everyone could join us. As you'll see shortly, I'm just going to walk through. Let's see, can everybody see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, great, because I can't see you guys anymore. Lovely technology. Anyway, so I work for the Downtown Alliance, as Kate said, and we thought, obviously this is a moving target. We're trying to anticipate what the short and long-term changes in our downtown economy are going to be, how long it'll take for folks to be able to safely come back to downtown and us to get back safely to full capacity. So I'll speak a little bit to what we know. It's mostly what we don't know, and then talk at the end about, as an organization, what we're doing to reopen the office a little bit this summer, and kind of what that's looked like. Just because I'm also general counsel, I think about those things as well, and I thought it might be useful. So that's what the summary slide says. So we conducted a survey, and we've been tracking some of the mobility in downtown with using Bluetooth streetlight data for our circulator study. So we have a little bit of information, and we're using that to help us understand the recovery through this crazy time. So just as a kind of, this is an interesting slide that we put together for the circulator study that we recently just kicked off, and which may sound a little bit obsolete at this point, but it's something we want to do, and we want to make sure that we're going to be ready if there's any federal stimulus dollars or anything to help us get that project underway. But if you can see just generally what the employment distribution is downtown, and what the survey results, we conducted a survey in April of our first floor retail because they're the hardest hit. They're about 13% of our downtown employment, and sweet. So, and then also a snapshot of the mobility, because I know that's an important aspect of this. This is pre-COVID, right? These are pre-COVID, what the employment distribution was, pre-COVID, what the citywide mode share is. It's a little bit higher for downtown, the drive alone rate. And of course, all this has changed with us working from home and trying to anticipate, because we are a large investor in Movability. We have a cash out program at the Downtown Alliance. We want to incentivize people to not drive alone and park downtown when they go to work, but everything's kind of in flux. So I'll talk about that, and so will other panelists. But just so you can see some of the results here of our streetlight data shows that the average weekly vehicle trips are down from over 15 on Congress Avenue, for example, to 3,000 per day. And you can see this is pre-COVID in 2019. In the blue, the orange is during March, kind of right after the lockdown, and then April, a little bit of a bump in some places. But it's just kind of interesting to see graphically how traffic has changed in downtown, different points. So like I mentioned, we also conducted a survey because we're trying to understand where downtown is hardest hit, and also I'm tracking a lot of the federal legislation and understanding if those programs, who's being missed by those programs, and how we can advocate at the city and eventually state level to try to fill those gaps. And so these are the key findings. And this was back in April before for example, the Paycheck Protection Program was, monies were distributed. So it's a little bit older data, but we plan to go back out with a follow-up survey. The key findings are that, downtown's been extremely hard hit by the COVID-19 stay-at-home orders economically. Small retail businesses are dependent on tourism, and that's essentially stopped. As we know, hotels have skeleton crews. They're, barely filling 10% of their rooms, if that. So some at 5% in downtown. Most businesses, luckily, were able to apply for federal financial assistance. I believe it was around 75 or 80%, which is better than a lot of small downtowns in Texas that I talked to. But we need to go follow up and find out if they actually were able to receive that federal assistance. And I know the city's rolled out a lot of programs, in particular to help live music and artists and different, particularly economically vulnerable populations, to help close that gap and keep them afloat while we're trying to get back to being able to be safely go to full capacity. So at that time, in early April, when we administered the survey, these were the results about how quickly folks thought they would be able to reopen. And we're trying to track with our ambassadors, and also we have a couple other kind of data-driven sources to figure out how many of these businesses are actually reopening. Of course, it's gradual and sequenced, and it depends on actual safety and perception of safety for consumers. So more to come on this, but thought it would be interesting to share. And if you guys are if you are interested in that, and you go to our website, you can just Google Downtown Austin Alliance Retail Survey, and you'll find the full presentation and all the results from that. I stole this phrase, next normal, from someone who works for the transportation department, because we were calling it the new normal, and he said every week it's different, so we have to just say what's the next normal, which I appreciate. So, basically reopening the economy, particularly in downtown, is going to be slow and sequenced. We don't anticipate a quick bounce back, and that's, for a variety of reasons. The COVID-19 still looms large, and people are rightly so nervous about being around more people. And of course, downtown thrives around and thrives on activity in downtown. Lots of people, going to the bars, eating at the restaurants, and we want to get back there, but not at the risk of public safety. So the way we see it is like we have to try advocate to keep businesses stabilized. There is a potential to accelerate positive trends, and on the mobility front, which is the topic today, that includes walking and biking, which we know is up in Austin. We think that there's an opportunity if people continue to work from home, for folks to shift from, for downtown to shift from a primarily, office-driven commuter center to more downtown residential living, which we were already seeing in the last 3 to 5 years, a ton of residential development opening up or in the development pipeline. We could also think about it becoming more of an educational center, potentially, a large ACC campus, or there's a lot of, smart minds out there thinking about what's the future of downtown if more folks continue to work from home. An interesting statistic is we know about 62% of downtown jobs are capable of working remotely. And that number included all the service industry and folks that aren't back. So, we just have very few folks downtown generally right now, but just thinking about that number as we try to revitalize downtown and think about the purpose of that, and continue and not try to incentivize, driving alone, which might feel like the safest mode, except to the extent it's necessary in order to get the economy running. So we're kind of walking that line, which is not easy. And like I said, we're following this Bluetooth data. We're looking at transit ridership, which, my understanding is probably won't be back at full capacity because of the nature of transit ridership until next summer, all depending on vaccine availability or what have you. And, the scooter data, which had fallen down a lot, and the city has a portal so you can look at that data. But some companies are making a bit of a resurgence. They're really focused on safety and cleanliness and sanitation of the vehicles. And because you can ride a scooter or a dockless bicycle, e-bike separate from, or, the motorized scooters, in your own vehicle, and you can keep some space, that's something to consider about a potential trend for folks getting around, whether it's commuting or just coming downtown, to eat at Stubbs outside or what have you. So just some ideas that are coming from the city that I thought would be interesting to share before I talk about what we're doing as a company is there's this room to queue concept, which I won't click on, but you guys can Google it. And it's something Vancouver's doing where they're taking some street space in front of storefronts and, to create more space for outdoor seating. And I think we're in the works of talking to the city about doing something like that. It's basically, how can we create a socially distanced environment where people feel safe to come and patronize, and are safe to come and patronize restaurants and stores downtown, but they have room to keep their distance, right? And the city's also redesigning streets for multimodal travel while car travel is down, which is called the Healthy Streets Initiative, which I'll get to. And then also there have been impacts to downtown parking, which I'll discuss in more detail. So if you guys aren't aware, the city launched this Healthy Streets Initiative this month, kind of on the heels of already having closed to car traffic. You'll see the one map is of Riverside Drive through Butler Park, which has been closed, which is kind of close to where I live, so I enjoy that a lot. And then right here on Pleasant Valley Road, where they were already considering and had done a lot of public outreach to put in some bike lanes, they've taken some right away for those bike lanes. So they're taking advantage of the opportunity while car traffic is down. And then this month, they're calling them soft closures. They're basically using cones or some signage, but you can see the streets listed there. If any of y'all live close to there, it's kind of nice to take your family and enjoy those places while we can. So I applaud the city for being proactive. They certainly weren't the first one in the US to do this. I think Oakland's closed over 70 miles of roads in their city. So if you go to the city's website, you can suggest streets that you think they should close. And this is, I think, a really important program. So and kind of incentivizes multimodal travel, right? And gets people thinking about how they might change their behaviors if and when they do start going back to the office. And then the parking impacts, hearing from the city that they are looking at actually raising the price of on-street parking. Of course, the parking enterprise has taken a huge hit. In the way that parking works in the city is it's completely funded by parking meters or pay stations. So, and they actually contribute to the general fund each year. Well, this year they're not going to be able to do that. They're probably going to need funding in order to keep some staff on board. So that might be partially the reason why they're looking at raising the price. It'll be a gradual raise. We did a parking study in downtown, and this is actually an important policy that we had recommended that the city do, which is to gradually increase the cost of parking over time. They're going to eliminate time restrictions. So that will mean that you won't get a ticket if you stay over 2 hours or 3 hours, but you will pay more per hour the longer you're there. And of course, you can use your app, which is great because it's touchless, and you can add time with your credit card from the restaurant, or if you're in an office in a meeting, whenever that becomes the norm again. But, of course, we talk to the city, and we're concerned because we're hearing from this particular, like Red River Culture District and different districts in downtown where, as they reopen, they need to have affordable options for their employees. And so the off-street prices are coming down. We're seeing that happen with some city lots, and also with the private sector. I mean, the market's really driving it, but the our parking strategy also recommended that the market really even out. Really, the on-street spaces that are right in front of a store should be the most expensive, and the ones in the garages should be less expensive. So it's always been the flip of that by a lot, by $2 on the street and $20 in a garage. So this is the the silver lining, I guess, is that the economy changes are actually helping us meet some goals in the parking study. But I just want to let you guys, give you all a heads up about that. And then just getting to the Downtown Alliance office ourselves. So, we have about 25 employees, full-time employees, professionals, in addition to who you guys have probably seen on the street, which are downtown ambassadors, which we actually contract with a company called Block by Block, and we have about 40 downtown ambassadors. So, but the 25 of us who are typically had worked in the downtown office have been, of course, all working from home. And because we are the Downtown Alliance and we want to model kind of safely returning to downtown, we're looking at a June 15th reopening. Honestly, this is still very much employee-led, and what I'm hearing in downtown is that, it's tenant-led, whether or not folks want to come back to the office, and that's understandable because it's still a little bit scary. So we're spending a lot of time and working with outside counsel to come up with our return to office policy. We'll have a lot fewer people in the office. I think most likely it will start with 4 or 5 employees coming to the office, and that's so we can safely physically distance them. We're working closely with Stream, which is our building manager, to work out how the building itself can be safer to come in and out of. And so, as we develop that policy, I'm happy to share that with anyone who's interested. I would say just offhand, the issues that I've been talking to council with are, office safety and sanitation, how often you clean, what materials, staggering shifts, potentially providing, face coverings and thermometers, not allowing any visitors or in-person meetings, at least in this first phase. Changing the seating chart. We have mostly an open office with 5 enclosed offices, so we'll probably put those folks in the enclosed offices that do want to come back. And we've decided to survey our employees, which is at the top of, close to the top of this slide, because we want to know, kind of at a high level, I put on the side what we're getting at with our survey questions. And I'm also happy to share that with anyone. I kind of threw it together based on some surveys that SurveyMonkey had out there and different sources. And we had to put it together rather quickly, but the idea was to assess the comfort level of each employee. It's an anonymous survey, but we are going to go back to folks and specifically ask them if they want to come back. CEOs already started those conversations. We're trying to figure out what options are not only OSHA compliant and CDC compliant, but also make employees feel more comfortable so that they feel safe and are productive if they want to come back. And then we're also asking, if you want to keep working from home, what are those challenges so we can make it easier for them to do so. And we're hearing from some folks that they just have a lot more, they're more productive and have more job satisfaction since they started working from home. So, it's all kind of comes down to, personal work style and personality a lot of the time. So we want to make sure that we're crafting our policy and our telework policy to acknowledge that some people want to continue to work from home and they may do so for a long time. And finally, we want to know if they think if they're confident in our ability to manage through this time and how often they want us to communicate about it and that kind of thing. There are lots of ins and outs and details on this front, which I'm happy to talk a little bit more about. For example, taking temperatures. Legally, you can take employees' temperatures at work. We're probably going to just ask folks to take their own temperatures and then certify that the temperature reading is normal, that they haven't had any exposure to anyone with COVID. And then, legally, we can ask them to report positive test results, is my understanding. So, yeah, that's it for me. And if you guys have questions, I'm happy to answer them whenever we're done with the presentations.
Great, thank you so much, Casey. With that, I am going to hand it over to Sean with Hypergiant.
Thank you. Let me get my screen set up. So can y'all see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Great. So my name is Sean Ullman. I'm the Vice President of Culture and Hype at Hypergiant. I'm responsible for spreading the mission, vision, and values of Hypergiant throughout the organization externally and internally. So Hypergiant was founded by Ben Lamb. We are a Hypergiant Hypergiant is an artificial intelligence company and a space age solution company. So we are based in Austin, Texas. We have about 5 offices. Austin's our headquarters. We have offices in Houston, Dallas, Seattle, New York, and we'll be opening, we were opening up a office in DC, and that's to be determined. Our office is on 6 in Congress. We have about 220 employees as our team members, and we work with brands from Nestle, Disney, GE, NASA, and SpaceX. On our space age solution side, we've helped NASA and SpaceX with 4 different launches, and on the brand side, we work mostly in the energy, aviation, healthcare, and entertainment. Our mission is to create a better world, and Ben Lamb is helping to deliver on that promise of a better future. So our team is mostly divided of people from designers, from programmers, and data scientists. So, we are in a unique position because our company, we had really big plans for South by Southwest. We were putting on our own mini South by Southwest festival. We had over 10,000 people attending it. It was going to be a 3-day festival focusing on artificial intelligence, and then also we were partnering with Spacecom and working with and bringing in some really great speakers around space. And then we decided before South by Southwest that we were going to have to pull and cancel the event, which was it was really devastating and really hard because the team had been working very long hours to put this together, but it was the right thing to do. And so immediately from there, Ben decided that everybody should work from home. And so we were very fortunate that the office and Hypergiant was already set up to work from home. We had already had distributed teams set up. So, and we were working with tools like Zoom and Slack and Google Chat so that things were pretty efficient. And as we're continuing to move forward, we're realizing that this might be a better opportunity for the team. We're seeing that not only are the teams more productive, we're realizing that the teams are connecting more, even though we're further apart. We're doing more Zoom happy hours. We're doing more activities online. And so my job as the head of culture is to figure out opportunities and ways to keep everybody together, keep everybody motivated, and make sure that we're not overdoing it on Zoom and we're not overdoing it online, and trying to find that balance of productivity and connectedness, but also giving people their space and time. Part of what we've done with to help fight COVID, we have a huge research and development team. And so when we found out COVID was really starting to hit hard, our team started to make hundreds of P100 mask filters using our 3D printers. Every week we have doctors and nurses from all over the country reaching out to us on social media, asking us for help. And it's been a great opportunity to see the team come together and to provide these resources for doctors and nurses. The slide that you see right now is also it's an online tool that we created called ACEs. It's the after COVID emission simulator that shows how in just a few months we've been able to address another crisis, which is really important to us, which is climate change. The tool shows what happens when we immediately snap back to pre-COVID lifestyle in terms of consumption and emissions versus maintaining some of the societal changes that and adding new interventions to further mitigate climate change. So while the employees are no longer in the office, we know that we've greatly reduced our carbon footprint. You know, we have, out of the 220 employees, we have about 150 in the Austin office at 6th and Congress. Parking's always been a huge issue. You know, I would say 90% of that 150 were driving into downtown. And so, you know, as parking becomes more limited downtown, we're foreseeing expanding work from home options to cater to everybody's lifestyle. So, you know, we are still trying to figure this out. We don't have all the answers. We are taking a pulse on our employees. We're taking a pulse on the executive team to figure out what's the next best step. I would say that we're starting to see more downtown offices open, but I don't foresee us going back into the office in 2020. I think that with what we've been able to build online, the culture is thriving, the culture is being more productive, and my job is to figure out new ways, new exciting, entertaining ways to keep everybody engaged. And so my role has actually changed because before it was about building culture through four walls, and now I have to build culture through Wi-Fi. So, you know, we feel like the teams have been doing a really great job, and you know, we are excited about the future. We just need to figure out how to, if and when we want employees coming back into the office, what's that look like? So with my team, we've been talking to manufacturers about having a mud room, which is a lobby slash kind of sanitation room. Is it making more space between desks? We have an open workspace. That place, you know, that idea is probably done. Is it putting plexiglass between each of the desks? So these are the questions that we're trying to figure out, that we're talking to manufacturers, we're talking to other cultural leaders, trying to figure out what, you know, what they're doing. But as I said, I don't foresee us going back into the office in 2020. And so it's been definitely an interesting time. It's been a fun time seeing, an exciting time seeing how adaptable our employees have been and how they've stayed motivated. And there's definitely a lot of great energy and spirit for what we're doing. So that is pretty much what Hypergiant is doing.
Great, thank you so much, Sean. With that, please bear with me. I am going to try to hand it over to Mike. And we've been having a few technical difficulties this morning, so let's see if I can.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Mike.
Okay, well, that's the best we're going to do. If you can hear my voice, you're going to be in the same position my kids have been forever, and they didn't like that much. So here we go, rock and roll. I guess what we could do is somebody there can go through my slides, and I've got a hard copy, and we can adapt, and I'll explain what's on the slide. Does that work for you?
Yes, and I am about to launch your presentation here.
Okay, I will be patient.
Hopefully you can all see this. All right, can one of my panelists confirm, can everyone see these slides?
Yes, yeah, we can see it, Kate.
Thank you. Okay, Mike, you're on. This is the first one.
Okay. My first real slide, which is page 2. Just a real quick review of our major projects. And the 183A up in the Leander City Park area was project number 1 for us in 2007. And then the Mopac North project, which is Express Lane. I don't have it in here, but at one point, the Express Lane, Cap Metro on the particular line increased their ridership well over 75%. I mean, in the beginning, the numbers were skewed because they were so low to begin with, but year over year, it was a 75% increase, which is dramatic, and really was an excellent opportunity for us to show that Express Lane and transit can work if transit actually has the opportunity to move. And then 183 South is over on the east side. That's under construction. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But the real importance of 183 South, as I'll say, is an alternative to I-35. And then there's another one that's supposed to be marked 290 headed over to Manor is another one of our projects, and that project is also has been doing well. One of the things I want to on the slide on non-toll operations, you see a description, but the most important thing there is the number of non-toll lanes that are available. And that has proven, that was an early decision of the Mobility Authority to provide, we had to provide replacement capacity that was already on the ground in most cases. If it wasn't on the ground, we didn't have to. 45 Southwest would be an example of that. But having said that, these three are representative of the percentage of lanes that are not even tolled in our overall project. So you can see it ranges from 36% to 59%. And I don't know if we're taking questions at any time. Anybody can ask a question. But also on there, the shared use path are highlighted. I think that's old numbers. I think they're very, very old numbers. I'm sorry for that. 183A would be about 3 times that amount now with all of the new roadways. On page 4, you see our weekly transactions. So you can see before COVID, we were over 2 million transactions every day. And that had dropped to a low of 1 point, looks like about 1 point, I can't read that, 844,000, okay, there we are. 844,000. So that's a pretty big drop, and it's pretty, since we're totally funded by Wall Street, we have no tax base, so everything that we make goes into the bucket for paying off our debt, which is now about 2.4 billion. I just wanted to bring that up and make sure we all understand it's gotten difficult. Ignore the scales on the left side. I'm not sure what those scales mean. They don't look correct to me. But anyway, that's our hit over the COVID period. Here's two on the next page. 5 is two. One is on the left is the traditional 290 toll, and on the right is the Mopac Express lane. You can see them. What this represents is that the Mopac Express lane has taken the biggest hit by far. It's down to a weekly amount of 54,000, whereas in the past we would have had 254 basically. So go ahead.
Mike, I'm sorry to interrupt. Is there any way to know how much of that is individual commuters versus the transit that was pretty heavily using those express lanes?
This would almost, there's no way to know how many people were on the bus. Well, Cap Metro would have that number. And in fact, that's a good point that I would like to find out on that particular line, those express runs, what's the delta on what it was before in March, early March versus what it is now. How many riders are they getting? We need to find that number out. But this would represent primarily commuters because actually this one, what we're finding now is just an odd, Mopac is still pretty much wide open, and it's odd that anybody's using the express lane, but it's only 35 cents, so I guess they figure we have a lot of users that just get in that lane because they think it's safer. They don't have to worry about people crossing over in front of them. So I would say that 54,000 is probably a range of just casual drivers and commuters. Page 6. I got a bunch of notes here I'm gonna get rid of. Sorry about that.
Hey, Mike, can I a question to you while you're doing that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. First question: are you planning on lowering the tolls for anyone, or in particular essential workers or lower income workers, as we move forward with recovery? No. Okay.
No.
And second question.
The reason for that is, let me say, as I said at the very beginning, we provided a free alternative. So 40% of our debt is non-tolled. So the assumption is if people are having an issue, which I'm sure they are, obviously, they can go and take the non-toll road, which we provided. It's kind of like an example would be if you were going to get in two Uber cars pull up, and you're going from Round Rock to downtown Austin, and one's free and one's not. So if you can't afford the one that's not, you can get in the free car. So we have that free access available. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I think you were going to add on to that.
Oh, yes. We had one more question directed towards you about any plans to build more bike or pedestrian lanes. I know you mentioned those numbers aren't necessarily up to date, and there are more in the plans, but if so, when and where?
We are in the process of building more lanes. We have a new project coming up that I'll show you. Well, we can talk about it now and skip it, but 183A from Cedar Park to Liberty Hill. We will be adding lanes across the San Gabriel all the way up to Highway 29 in Williamson County. The big one is going to be 183 South, where we're doing a lot of work on shared use paths, and then a lot of work on connecting to the existing trail systems over there and bike systems. So that you'll be able to go, actually, when you think about it, you'll be able to go to the airport to Manor on a bike. And you'll be able to go from the airport. I guess you run into little troubles just west of the interstate, but you could almost go to Leander. There's going to be extensive trails. And Mopac South, when that starts up, that will complete. There's several gaps in our urban systems. 183 North is another 8-mile roadway up to Lakeline Mall area. And then Mopac South from Ladybird Lake down to Slaughter. They'll both be, all those shared use paths and bike paths will be filled in. So we have had the biggest bike program in the region, bar none. I mean, nobody comes close to putting down the number of shared use paths that we put in. And we just completed with a partnership with the Nature Conservancy. We did a shared use path from South Mopac at basically the Wildflower Center all the way over to the Butte, Kyle, Hayes County line. And that's our portion of the Violet Crown Trail, which is done. And the Nature Conservancy will fill in the gap between the Barton Creek watershed area and where our trails start. So now when I call ours a trail, they are at least a 10-foot wide path, concrete, maintainable. So I mean they're permanent, and they are separated from the roadway, so people don't have to compete with vehicular traffic, which is really important. On page 6, we're talking about navigators, and it's a customer engagement online panel that we're going to be using. We're developing it now and working hard to fill out that panel. We'd like several thousand people on that virtual panel so that we can ask any question. I mean, you could literally do a question a day if you wanted to get some responses. One of them we want to ask very quickly is how many people are coming back to work in an office environment versus in an environment at home. That's a big question mark right now for our industry because express lanes are built, for better or for worse, they're built upon congestion. They are the one lanes that give transit a congestion-free lane, and then it gives commuters who are willing to pay for it a congestion-free lane. And if, depending upon where we land on the percentage of people that stay at home, work from home, I should say, that's going to depend whether or not these next 2 rounds of projects, 183 North and Mopac South, will be able to be funded. I think on page 8, I've talked about this project being an alternative. The project status is 92% complete, and we expect to complete that at the end of this year. This is essentially 12 lanes, 6 of which are tolled, 6 are non-tolled. And the real benefit, again, as I-35 goes under construction, I don't care how many people are working from home, 35 will be a nightmare. I can't imagine with all the construction equipment that will be out there doing a $6 billion project not being backed up to San Antonio. So this road gives you an alternative to that. and it quadruples the capacity of what was there before. So it's a vital roadway. And then remember, all the shared use paths are there, and the access roads, which provide for local folks that don't have to get on that toll road. They can just go from intersection to intersection as they please. So that's a real benefit for 183 South. The next page on 9 shows you some of the bike and the pedways that we have and that we're building, or are built actually. New crossovers over the roadway, so people don't have to. There's no way to cross a continuous flow road like 183 South will be. But we replaced all the pedestrian bridges, and we're doing a lot of landscaping. Probably, I think our shared use paths and pedestrian facilities, if I'm not mistaken, approach 25 million. So it's a significant number. Nothing like this has been done on the east side of Austin, and we're very proud of what we're going to be able to do there. This will be an iconic roadway. You see the truss bridge on the page 10 on the left. We are really, it's a big dream to make sure that that truss bridge is repurposed and repositioned to be a very user-friendly. You'll note there's no cars on it anymore. It's going to connect the Armstrong trails with other trails that are out in that area. That is a magnificent view of downtown, maybe the best view we have of downtown Austin. And we look forward to having events on that bridge, music, just all sorts of food trucks, and just make it something that people will be very proud of. And down below, we'll make it a very user-friendly and family-friendly park with all of the refreshing of all the landscaping. So we're really looking forward to the Colorado River trailhead, which will embarrass the city of Austin's trailhead under the Mopac Bridge. I just had to say that. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't going to put anything down. It looked like bare dirt. So that particular bridge is going to be awesome. And moving forward, I'm going to jump to page 13. That's the 183 North project. This is one of those, again, it should say express lane project, or maybe it does. This is an express lane only. We're building out another free lane. There'll be 3 free lanes in each direction, 3 or 4, and then the 2 express lanes, if we can get them funded. That would be, at least $580 million. 14 is the project up the Liberty Hill, which probably doesn't interest many people, so I'll skip over that. That's pretty much it. And I hope we were able to follow all that. I apologize I wasn't able to connect it. If I asked any questions I didn't know the answer to.
All right. Well, thank you. Bear with me.
You're welcome.
Yeah. I am going to stop sharing my screen here and open it up for questions. I think we've got a few here. Okay. Question for Casey. Going back to the beginning here, can you clarify the legal issue with employers taking employees' temperatures? Is that a Health Privacy Act issue?
Yeah, so legally, I'm not sure if it's because of the OSHA guidance and CDC guidelines, but essentially it's been interpreted, even though normally that would maybe violate privacy concerns in the past because of the pandemic. Legally, employers are permitted to take employees' temperatures. So if you wanted to have like a radar gun or whatever, some sort of temperature taking device when folks entered the office, or to have it to take folks' temperature if they are concerned they might have a fever, you legally can do that. You don't have to do that. And the Downtown Alliance has decided that we are going to ask instead that employees take their own temperature before they come into the office and then certify that it was normal.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, and then Mike, if you're still on, back to you, and I have another question directed towards you. Will there be any consideration in the future about letting private shuttles ride the toll lanes for free or at a discount?
Right now, we've been a big part of of encouraging people to utilize the express bus service from Cap Metro, and which then it's free because obviously you don't pay a toll; you're just paying Cap Metro. Mm-hmm. We also have provisions for van pooling, which we let the vans go free. So yes, that's available, and you have to be a registered shuttle or a registered van pool. But once you do that, you don't pay a thing to use the express lanes. And then we're also trying, back in the day when we had all the congestion, we were really working with folks such as yourselves and others for carpooling. And, at that time, I used to say, there's 900,000 empty seats coming in and out of Austin every day. We need to fill some of those. So the short answer is yes, registered van pools currently get to go free.
Okay, great. And then, sorry, Mike, another one for you. You're on the spot here. Someone asked, are the current toll roads self-sustaining, or are they requiring additional mobility authority allocations? And is there any sense that Wall Street will continue to have ability or interest to underwrite future projects both here and nationally?
That's a great question. Our projects and those going forward have been very sustainable, and in fact, going forward, other than where TxDOT may, or a city or whatever, may want some pavement included in one of our contracts that we weren't going to, necessarily include. Anything other than that is totally on the mobility authority. We don't have a tax base, so we have to rely on the user fees, which is why it's so important that we have the public understand that that's the only way we can pay off our debt. And going forward, we have talked with the rating agencies, Moody's, Standard & Poor's, major underwriters, major investors. And one thing, not all agencies are created equal, but across the nation, they are rated stable. There's been a couple of downgrades due to a lack of liquidity, but the RMA is not one of those, since we have what's considered a very good, healthy level of reserve and liquidity, and we can backstop our own debt payments. We have actually 2 layers of debt payments reserves. One is a required reserve, which about $98 million that sits on the sidelines in case for some reason everything stops. And then we have our own board policy reserve of $124 million that is available for any use that the board so decides, including this particular situation. So we're in very good shape. And across the sector, I've talked to my colleagues from Pennsylvania to New York to Florida, California, and it varies, but almost all of them are in really good shape at this point, except for those like Pennsylvania Turnpike that they do transfer $120 million every quarter to Pennsylvania Transit, and that's creating some issues in the Pennsylvania region, but our region, we're in good shape.
Excellent, thank you. And then we're generally, I'm going to throw a question out, and Sean, I'm going to start with you. This is a little more geared towards, the office environment and how we interact with our coworkers and the work that we're doing. But I'd love everyone to chime in on this in the last few minutes here. We all know that changing habits is hard, and we've all been forced into a major habit change with our transportation habits through this. How important, after being thrown into this new work environment, do you feel it is to keep some of those changes in place so that we don't go back to the default of driving alone, and moving forward, keeping some more of that active transportation or teleworking or both in the mix?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, we are probably not going to go back into the office in 2020 and then for a while into 2021. We just see the productivity working really well with our employees. We also see that they are, well, parking was always an issue with our team because we were downtown, we were at 6th and Congress. A lot of the employees had to walk almost a half mile to a mile from the rainy parking lot to 6th and Congress. So they are, what we're noticing is that they are happy with the way it is. We're seeing the productivity stay. And so, we are going to continue to build culture around an online presence and keep moving that forward.
Great, thank you. Casey, what about your take on that?
Well, I would say, we're not terribly concerned. I mean, I'm looking at it kind of downtown wide and citywide and maybe nationwide. I think that teleworking is going to be a lot more popular. Like that pie chart that I showed of the mode split in Austin, I imagine that in order to get to the city's 50% drive alone rate goal, well, clearly we're already there, but a lot more of that maybe they had attributed to transit as Project Connect is built out or whatever, will actually be folks who work from home more often, and in the short term, that's going to be full time. Maybe some folks will come back to work to the office occasionally, people who need to be in in-person meetings. But so I think that, necessity is the mother of invention, and I know Movability's done great work in helping their members come up with all the technology and different things that they need to facilitate teleworking. And now, a lot of us get it, and we can do it if we can do it. So, but there are still a lot of people. So my concern is the folks that can't work from home, having a place for them, and a way for them to get to work without just having to drive alone. I mean, it's not just a congestion issue. It's an environmental issue. It's a cost of living issue. I think that we should continue to invest in transit and find ways, and Capital Metro has been very innovative in this as well, to make it safe to travel, by bus or light rail system as that's built out in our city. And I think it's going to continue to be important, particularly in the long term. I mean, that system would not be built until 2028. Life will be very different then. So I think we have to take the long view and continue to invest as a community in those systems. And I think in the short run, I had mentioned the Healthy Streets and other initiatives, because I think the city has an opportunity, and as residents and Austinites, we have an opportunity to advocate for the city to take advantage of the change in behavior among most people to, a lot of people to start walking more and biking more, to look at street design. And, we have bike plans that that aren't complete, and we can do a lot of things as a city to take advantage of this time. And the opportunity where life has been so disrupted that people are looking at changing the way that they behave. So maybe even as offices do open in the next year or so safely, then those folks will change the way they get to work. So I don't want to lose that opportunity, I guess is what I'm saying, to both redesign the street for walking and biking, but also taking the long view and investing in a real transit system for the city of Austin. Of course, we have to take into consideration potential future pandemics and resiliency and all those things as we design the system. And, you know, Project Connect is still a conceptual design, so there are opportunities for us to, and for CapMetro to think about that. So I guess my concern is more that people will be a little bit short-sighted and not continue to invest in transit, and the city won't take full advantage of multimodal opportunities with street design.
Excellent. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. And then really quickly, because we're just about at time, but Mike, your perspective is obviously more of a regional one, and you spoke to the challenges, you know, congestion is kind of a necessary part of what you do, but what's your take on these big shifts and how they play into the future? Do you think there's a way to come back in a healthy both economically and safety wise way, and have more balanced travel habits?
Yeah, I wish there was a way to make it easy, but I don't think it will be. There's going to be a lot of latent demand that will start showing up. I mean, our percentage increases over the last, is just one graph I showed you. You know, things are starting to tick back up a few percentage points every day or every week. So I think eventually, I don't think it'll come back as the other panelists have mentioned. I think there'll be a significant period where there'll be a lot more stay-at-home, work from home folks, but at the same time, Austin's going to be an extremely attractive marketplace for new industries. So I think what will backfill some of that capacity is going to be folks moving into the Austin region. If we assume that Austin is going to be one of the better markets for new industry, I think that it would be nice if we could do these express lanes so that transit had dedicated lanes that they could move in. Unfortunately, you know, if we're still down 20%, say, and people are happy with the non-toll lanes or general purpose lanes like a MOPAC type facility, the likelihood of us getting funding would decrease just because of the amount of demand you have to pay off $600–700 million of bond. So, I mean, you say, well, why don't we put that all in transit? I'm not sure transit's going to come back. I'm not going to differ with you, but I think transit's going to be a lot harder to sell going forward in terms of public acceptance of getting on buses. It's going to be difficult, and let's hope it comes back strong, and we'll do what we can in our lanes to make that happen. We have never charged a bus to be in our lane, so. But I think that going forward, we're going to get some tests over the next 12 months on the feasibility of new projects, and we'll see where public demand is going.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for your insights and your ideas. And thank you to our audience for joining us. I hope this has been helpful. I know we're a few minutes over, so I'm going to say goodbye to everyone, but I put my email address in the chat box. Please do reach out if you have any more questions or want to know more about what we do. And it's been a pleasure. Thank you all.
Thank you.